What's up, y'all? I just want to say I do not make the game. I just show how to play on the board. And that's what I want to start with. Now, wait. So I'm gonna show this clip. The question is, why is a knight able to jump over the people? You like, what are you talking about? This is not what you said you was talking about. Yeah, it is. Give it a minute and you'll see. Just give it a minute.
The knight is perhaps the most fun piece in chess. It is the only piece in chess that does not move in some sort of straight line. It moves in a strange L shape. The other interesting thing about the knight is it's the only piece in chess that can jump over other pieces, like this. Highlighted are all the possible squares the knight can move to on the next turn. Notice it always moves in the same pattern. And notice that the knight moves from a light square to a dark square, and then on the next turn it moves from a dark square to a light square. The knight always switches colors with each turn it makes.
Here we learn how to move knight. Let's see how it can capture.
Okay. Now, I just kind of want to show that clip, and I'm going to go into the next clip, but no matter what activity we are engaged in, there's rules to engagement, there's rules in the game. Your goal is to, at the very least, learn how to play the game the best you can. At the greatest level, change the board, change how the game's playing. But first you gotta understand how the game's being played. And this goes for any sport. So why do refs make the calls they call on basketball or football or hockey or pick a sport? It don't matter. But that's what we trying to understand. So you gotta understand that first to understand how to move when you're playing the game. This next clip I'm gonna run into, I'm just trying to understand and see and think how they're going into making decisions of how government is gonna flow in this particular state and city.
I am downtown at City Hall this morning, and joining me right now in an exclusive interview is New York City Mayor Zohran Hamdani. We've wanted to talk to you for a very long time about so many different issues going on with the city, but I know that you've been working on the budget, and that is one of your first priorities, and so let's go there.
Absolutely.
Because I know that this morning, I believe, you're planning to make some announcements about the budget.
Yes, well, first I want to say it's a real pleasure to be on.
Thank you.
And today, you're right, we're going to be sharing the truth with New Yorkers that has sadly been hidden from them for far too long, which is that the prior mayoral administration has left us with a $12 billion fiscal deficit. And this is at a scale... It's actually greater than what we saw here in New York City during the Great Recession. And it's something that is attributable to gross fiscal mismanagement, to a refusal to actually budget honestly and be direct with New Yorkers. And that's what we're going to actually do today.
Okay, so point one, budget not being handled correctly. And what I would even make a caveat to is, in your own personal budget, are you handling it correctly? We're going to go more into depth. I don't know if we're going more in depth here, but what I'm thinking about, I'm not sure if we'll be able to touch on this video, but we'll probably touch on the next one.
Okay, so the big question is, assuming that that is the hole, how do you fix the hole?
I think the first way is you actually be honest about it. And the reason that that's important is what we saw in the last year from the mayoral administration was there was a recognition about the scale of this crisis, but instead of actually being direct with New Yorkers, it was trying to shift those costs out of view. We had cash assistance, for example, where we were budgeting only for about 50% of its cost on the books, keeping about 50% of its cost off the books.
So that's probably one of my first questions when he says that. How is some of the items on the books and how is some of the items off the books? What does that look like? How does that happen? even the legalities behind it. But that's my initial question, because I know in other businesses, if you operate like that, it could cause a problem. So I'm just thinking about how's that work at a government level.
The second thing is about actually making the case for how we fix structural imbalances in this city. We're talking.
I think this part is very key, structural imbalances, and that is keeping in mind with everything going on.
About a $12 billion deficit that is a result of not just the fiscal mismanagement, but also the decades-long effort of then Governor Cuomo to shift costs from the state to the city. So we need to change our relationship to the state. We also need to change our relationship to the wealthiest residents and most profitable corporations here in New York City.
So let's speak to that, because that's something you run on, raising taxes on the wealthy in New York. How much?
I know that's very popular on this program.
When you look, though, at the budget and this hole you're talking about, how much do you look at this hole and say, I can solve this because there are things in here that I can cut, there's zombie programs, other things, and how much do you think it is absolutely necessary?
I'm wondering what these zombie programs they're speaking about are.
For you to raise taxes on the wealthiest?
I think the scale of this crisis is one where we have to pursue all of these things. I have to show that this city government is not just serious about public goods, but also public excellence and public efficiency. And so we have to make sure every dollar that's being spent is actually being spent in a worthwhile way. I'll give you an example. The previous administration launched an AI chatbot that is basically unusable.
Okay.
Cost the city close to $500,000, right? That's the kind of money that is going down the.
So when they say unusable, so you mean the item is in no way, shape, or form can be redone, reused, revamped, and changed like some other apps or whatnot have been? Is it the coding language? It was how it formed. It can't be reutilized in a different way that could be done. It's almost like saying, oh, you can't use a particular item that a person has in the house or something like that. Oh no, we can't use that tub, that bike, that couch, or whatever. But is there another use that we can find for it? And I know that's a very simplistic way of asking. I don't know the depths of the situation regarding it, but those are some of my first questions. Is like, what exactly is the issue with the AI bot, and who were the people that we spoke to regarding it to figure it out? Was it in-house? Was it out-of-house? Was it a professional who is certified in that? That would be my assumption that would be done, but I don't know. And then those are the things that we have to do also in our own house, in our own area, in our own, govern what we do, how we utilize things, how we utilize our funds, etc. Are we being wise with it?
Drain. At the same time, $12 billion of a fiscal deficit requires the kinds of increased revenue on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more, increasing their taxes by 2%. It also means that we look at the relationship between the city and the state, where New York City is the economic engine of the state, of the country, and yet
So, but they said increase it 2%. But in my research, I'm reading that the wealthy are being taxed at 40 to 42%. And that's above other individuals who are only being taxed like 20, 22%. And there's a lot of nuances into that that I'm wondering, thinking that could happen, because if you earn over a certain amount of money, over 70,000, then you go into the next tax bracket. But that is based off, in all my research, claimed income. Not so. What if you're diversifying your portfolio? You're investing in your FSA, HSA, 401k, 403b, those different items. So that money is then not taxed. So are they going to do anything regarding that? How is that going to be handled? So, and I think that's the way a lot of people move, so that they run into specific issues regarding those matters. So their gross income is then skewed to a degree, so that doesn't become an issue. So how does that flow in that?
While we contribute 54.5% of the state's revenue, we only receive 40.5% in return. And if we had actually bridged that gap over the Cuomo years, we'd be talking about receiving an $8 billion additional every single year.
Do you go after?
I'm wondering what that means.
after that money first, or do you go after the additional tax dollars on the wealthiest New Yorkers first?
I think as a New Yorker, you always have to do all of the above. And so we have to both increase taxes on the wealthiest, we have to also change the relationship with the state, and we have to pursue these kinds of savings and efficiencies here in our city.
Okay, speak to this.
I would like some more clarity on the savings and efficiencies within the government. And this isn't just within New York, but I'm thinking about in other states too. How's that going to be handled? How can government be more efficient? Because in some of the things that I heard and read about at the federal level, how things are being mismanaged, how money and funds were going to different places. I'm questioning, like, is there ways that we could be more efficient as a government, in addition to how can we be more efficient at our own level, at our home personal private level also. So I think we all need to take accountability in that.
Because one of the biggest issues about taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers is the possibility that they leave New York. So the top 1% of New Yorkers pay somewhere between 40 and 48% of the total revenue for New York City taxes. If a couple hundred of them are mobile and have a private plane and can live in Florida and come here, 150 days a year, that
you only have to live in 150 days in Florida to establish residency in a different place. What is that? 5 months? What? 120 is 4 months, so 150 has got to be 5 months. 30 times 12 is 4. Yeah, it's got to be 5 months.
That's a problem. What do you do about that?
I think you get back to first the facts, because capital flight is always spoken about whenever we talk about the potential of increasing taxes on the wealthy. What we've seen is that since 2021, when New York State increased taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, the number of millionaires actually increased in this state. And so it has to be to get back to the facts. The second thing also has to be, we are increasing revenue also to be able to increase quality of service, right? We're sitting here right now in one of the coldest stretches in New York City weather history. One of the reasons why the city could start to get back on its feet was because we had a sanitation department that was staffed by thousands of people, to the extent that we could have 2,500 workers on every 12-hour shift. That's only possible when you're actually investing in public service.
You talk about more millionaires in New York City, and that's true. But at the very tip of the spear, I'm talking maybe even the billionaires, their ability to be mobile seems higher. And so the question is, you look at a state like New Jersey. David Tebbutt was a hedge fund manager in New Jersey who left the state. All of a sudden, they lost something like $140 million in revenue annually. And so the question is, if you lose a couple of those people, is that in your mind okay? Is that a cost of doing business? Or is that a problem? And what do you do about that?
Well, I think I have to prove that this increased revenue leads to an increased quality of life. And frankly, we also have to get through the kind of fear-mongering that typically takes place in this. The other day, I was speaking to a New Yorker who self-identified themselves as someone who would be taxed by our proposals. They said, I've heard that you're going to...
Time will tell. Time will tell. History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, but time will tell.
Tax millionaires, that true. I said, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to increase personal income taxes by 2%. They said, I'm going to leave, like you're saying. I said, I don't think you will. They said, why? I said, because it's a 2% increase. We're talking about $20,000 on an income of $1 million.
Yeah, but if you're already taxed at 40%, it's bringing up to 42 or how much more. So, and then other people only be taxed at 20, 22, and then it makes up, 70-something% of it? That's the argument on the opposite side. Everybody's vote counts.
No, as they said, that's actually much less than I thought it would be. I wouldn't actually be making a financial decision on the basis of that kind of an increase.
So you think that I should pay 70% of my income above $2 million in tax? Yes. You think
next dollar should be taxed at 70%?
Okay, so if that's the deal, you know what I would do? Once my income got to $2 million, I would stop working for the year. I would furlough my employees and say, you know what? I made my limit. I'm not going to work for 30 cents on the dollar. I'm playing golf. I'm going fishing. I'll see you next February. How about that?
And that is the problem. That's what people will do, talking about doing, planning to do.
come that didn't
You have to satisfy all the people's needs. You have to satisfy all the people's needs.
apply in the 1970s and 1960s? Because nobody.
But here's my thing. He's asking about 1960s, 1970s. We're talking about right now. I understand what he's asking. He's asking the question, he's trying to prove a point, but it's like the problem is now, not back then.
Nobody paid those taxes back then. You know how many? I would much rather. The economy was booming when the effective tax. Because no one paid those high taxes. That correlation with the national debt and the lowering of the effective tax rate on the wealthiest people in this country. You're not fooling anybody. So you think that I?
So Governor DeSantis from Florida is proposing something
I like this guy. I like how he talks about stuff.
that no other state in America is doing today. No state income taxes, no property taxes. Complete opposite of what Mamdani is proposing in New York City. Free buses, free government-ran groceries, all these free things that he wants to tax the rich. He's doing the opposite. Mamdani's listening to his younger voters. DeSantis maybe is listening to his older voters. Florida boomers. There's a big debate on Twitter with DeSantis. You just want to protect your boomer billionaires and millionaires. And no, that's not true. Back and forth. Is it a good idea to get rid of $61 billion revenue you're getting from property taxes? Is this even possible? Who's it going to hurt? Who does it benefit? We're going to talk about that today.
And I think Patrick Bet-David does such a good job on that. And so that's what I'm curious about. I'm curious what the flow is going to change from how it's going to go in New York and how things change and what actually DeSantis can do in Florida and how that's going to make an effect on the different economy. And as we see as how the states change and how it's going to operate, and then what will be the best practices that can meet all the needs of the people in existence, and how can we best position ourselves to be in a better situation. That's the first thing I would say. I might let this play a little bit more, but I'm rolling to the next video soon.
How to get all these notes. Okay, so let's go through it. Roughly $61 billion 2024 revenue came from property taxes. Of that $61 billion, 18 to 20 billion was homestead. People who live here. Non-homestead was $40 billion to $43 billion. 64% of people who don't live here. These are people that own a vacation home. It's Florida. It's a beautiful place. They want to come here during the winter. All of that. Right now, look at this here. The 61.
Okay.
Lawmakers in Florida just advanced plans to reduce property taxes for homeowners. If things keep moving forward, voters could see it on the ballot in 2026, in November 2026. With me now is the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. Governor, welcome to the program.
It's good to be here. A little colder than Florida. That's okay.
Sorry about that.
It is a cold front.
How much would you be able to cut property taxes by? And when you made the cut, how do you pay for local services?
Well, it's a good question. But first, let's just point out.
I think that is the biggest question. When you cut what you cut, what are you cutting and how are you going to replace the income of that as a state?
People are being pinched across the economy in a lot of things. And property tax.
Which is true. People's property taxes is exploding 200, 300, 400%. Like, it's crazy. It's doubling and tripling their mortgage. It's and people are struggling right now.
Says even though and it's all local in Florida, we don't get any at the state level. We've tripled our rainy day funds. We cut taxes. We have no income tax. We're doing fine at the state, but the local property taxes are hurting people. 2019 in Florida, the total amount of revenue for local government, $32 billion from property tax. You know what it is now? $56 billion. That's a massive
32 to 56. What changed? How come it jumped so much?
increase, so people are paying more. So the issue is we're going to focus on Florida homesteaded residents. Now that's a fraction of that revenue, and honestly, you would still have way more revenue than you had in 2019. We're working through exactly how that's going to work. Of course, we're going to make sure we have fire, police, and all the core things, but the reality is these local governments have overspent, and people are paying more and more.
And I think that is the biggest thing. they're not being physically responsible with their. I think Florida does a better job, but that's neither here nor there. But they're not being physically responsible. Talking about they overspend. How are they overspending? I think that's a government issue. And people make the comment, blow the government. It's almost even in a private organization. A private organization can be top heavy, administrative heavy. So it skims, like its C-suite is too big. So it'll cut down on the people who are there, the people who are operating. You need to be able to operate leaner, not with a skeleton crew, but less than what it is. Be more proficient, increase on your proficiency.
More for that, and at some point it's like, when is enough enough? Well, here's what I know.
Kind of get a lot of pushback from the local people.
Taxpayers were getting a lot of support. I mean, like, this is something that people have been asking about.
Yeah, tax people will support it, but I wonder who's pushing back.
But think about it. Can you have a situation where every 5 or 6 years you're increasing budgets 50, 60%? Now, part of it was we did have a boom with COVID. Everyone was rushing to Florida, caused property values to go up. But how is it that you buy a home for $350,000 and then 4 years later they tell you it's worth $1 million and you got to pay more in property tax? It's not right.
350 to $1 million. That's triple. It's almost triple. That's over triple. 330 is 1/3 of $1 million.
Understand, but by how much can you cut property taxes?
Well, our goal,
10%?
Well, no. Our goal is to focus on Florida homesteaded residents and eliminate for them, which is, the majority of our revenue for property tax is non-Florida residents, because people have second homes, you have people that buy it, and commercial property. So it ends up being about 30%.
Okay, so commercial property is wrapped in it too. So that means those individuals whose homestead is considered. I mean, you have insurance companies leaving Florida as well as in California too. So that also means commercial real estates are being changed within it too.
And of the revenue. Now, you may have to phase it in. There's going to be things we're going to do. We're sensitive to all that. I want something that can work, and I want something that can pass. And you need 60.
Something that can work and something that can pass. It's got to pass litigation. Pass a government vote.
50% of the voters to pass it.
But if you've got a home and it's homesteaded, you're going to eliminate the property tax on that home?
That's the goal, yeah.
Eliminate it completely.
Exactly.
I've got a homestead. That's another story entirely. Let me move on, if I may. You proposed an AI Bill of Rights.
Okay, not getting into that right now, but
because it is an unrealized gain. So they go like, yeah, you're worth $300 billion, but we can't tax you on those stocks because you haven't.
And this is part of the question. It's going back to original. An unrealized gain within a stock that you have. You can borrow from the stock, but you can't be charged for it. And this is learning to understand what pieces move on the board and how you can play. These are all things that are all correlated to each other. And understanding the board layout, how it's going, how it's getting played, how can you multiply, how can you exponentially increase it based on different things.
Sold the share, so you don't have the money, but you're worth the money, but you don't have the money. So, and I understand the argument. They go like, no, you don't have it. It's just what it's worth, because it will also crash, and then you have nothing, so we can't tax you on it. Then I'm like, okay, I understand that. So
Okay, so it could also crash. Talk about the stock.
Can't tax the people on a thing because they don't have it. It's just there. Okay, fine. Then Elon Musk offers to buy Twitter. He offers to buy it. And then he says in his offer, he goes, I'm putting up my Tesla stock as collateral. Then I'm like, so you do have it? Then I'm going like, wait. So you can buy a thing based on what you have. Yes. But when we want to tax you, you can say, I don't have it. Do you hear what I'm saying here?
But I mean, to my argument, and I like this guy actually, don't we do the same thing with a credit card? Is that not the same thing with a credit card? A credit card is money you don't have, but we know you can end up paying it back because you're quote unquote good for it, because they won't let you borrow outside an extended amount. Is that not the same thing? It's just at an exponential higher level.
And now, just think of the illogic of it. It's it's such a fun game that billionaires get to play, because all their money.
It's not only billionaires. Everybody gets to play the game. The question is, are you aware of the rules on the game, on the board that you're playing? And if you ain't, that's a problem. That is a problem. So that's what I'm saying. Figure out what the rules of the game are and let's engage, because whether you like it or not, you are involved in the game. If you living and breathing and you on this earth or in this specific places, yeah, you're involved in the game, whether you want to be or not.
Money is in that. Like if you earn your money as a salary, your money just gets taxed. That's it. You can't be like.
But there is people who try to eliminate taxes altogether. I'm not sure exactly how you do it with federal and state tax, but even if the going down to lowest tax bracket can put you down at 22%, but I heard there's a 7% rule. I think a 7% is the bar against tax gains, where therefore a millionaire, billionaire doesn't even receive an income. Corporate C-suite individuals do it too. So it's not like it cannot be done. Instead of taking a paycheck, you end up taking equity within the company, and you own stocks, A stocks, B stocks, whatever stocks, or if they just have a general stock too, they take that too, and you get all your money in shares of the company, and then use that borrow against. Therefore, you don't have an income, so therefore you don't have to pay on the income. Therefore, you cannot be taxed on the income. So then and that's what goes back to the original question with Mondami, and even not DeSantis, but eventually with DeSantis, is saying that okay, is it based off their income? What is it going to be based off of? What is it going to be based off of? Their net worth. So
IRS comes and you can't be like, I don't have that money because it is an
But that is all what I want to say right there. In that the fact of the matter is, so of course, and we've talked about it before, eliminate debt, most definitely, but also how can you get yourself to live off of the least amount of your income possible? Right now, you're probably living off 100%, 75%, 50%, but the goal will probably be 10%, 7%, 5%, 1%. I mean, how low can you go? If you can do that, you figure out ways to cut out different costs that you have, minimize different things, then that will give you more money and funds to do more stuff that you want to do. But if you don't even know the rule to the game we're playing, then how can you do it? You don't know that you have to basketball. You dribble the ball. You dribble the ball and you pick it up. You take 3 steps. That's travel. Oh, I didn't know it was 3 steps. It was supposed to be 2 steps. Same difference. Forward pass in football. I mean, I'm not sure all the rules in hockey, but I'm just saying there's different rules that you can and cannot do. So you have to understand the rules of the game. How's the ref going to call the calls? One thing I liked about Kobe Bryant was always like understanding he studied the ref rule book, but you know why? He studied the ref rule book to understand where the refs are at or not supposed to be at, so he could use that to his advantage. Talking about you don't have the angle for that call. This is what you have to do, and even different presidential individuals have talked about studying. I mean, a lot of different individuals within government have talked about studying the tax code, tax strategy. You must understand the rules of the games that you're playing in, and sometimes you only have a choice whether or not you're going to be involved in the game or not. All right, I wish I will.